number one.
So the primary is just a couple of weeks away, August 3rd, and we have had all of the leading candidates for the Seattle mayor's race on our show, with the exception of Lorena Gonzales. And as of this morning, she has not accepted our offer to come on to the show. So Gee and I...
Wait, because she said no or just ignored the request?
Well,
do we know?
We've been asking for a couple of weeks, and we've been given a bit of the runaround, then we got no response. And we have had everyone else who is basically considered a contender.
I've heard a lot of them. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm guessing that she doesn't want, we've been pretty critical of the city council, and I'm guessing that she doesn't see it as a benefit to her campaign.
Don't you have to have a thick skin to be in politics, though? Don't you have to
Correct.
doesn't that sort of like you earn your stripes by getting the media to complain about you? Isn't that kind of the...
With the exception of Andrew Lewis, we don't, and we have yet, since the inception of our show, we have yet to get Mayor Durkin on our show, too. We got really close. One time, we got really close. It's
so
frankly
strange.
shocking to me. It's a mistake on their part.
Yeah, it's changed so much just in the last 10 years. I guess maybe it's the era of social media where they just don't want to come on. They don't want to give a soundbite that's going to get repeated somehow or taken out of context or something. But we never do that at KIRO Radio.
I will say right now in this particular show, we try very hard to be fair.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that people see a benefit for in coming. But in any case, we're still ready to. Well, I'm ready to give my endorsement and the reason why.
The phone's ringing. Lorena Gonzales is calling in right now. No, I'm just kidding.
If she does call, we will give her the opportunity because she is one of the people that that voters will be deciding on, and she is one of as council president, she is one of the people considered to be leading in the race.
Yeah,
and according to polls. So, in any case, as far as who I believe I'm going to be voting for. I am going to vote for former city council member Bruce Harrell, who was also council president and briefly the mayor.
I think I interviewed him when he was mayor for a few minutes a couple of years ago.
Just a couple of days. And I'm going to explain why. To be honest, he was not the most impressive in terms of people who came onto our show and who we interviewed. I was most impressed with Lance Randall. And I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain why I'm going for Bruce Harrell, because I think that he is what we need right now, because we have a city council that has gone way too far left, in my opinion, has really lost touch with what the people of Seattle want. Our city is not in better shape. And this city council with a mayor who was considered, Mayor Durkin was actually considered to be a moderate Democrat.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
But because the council went so far, with the exception of there are two council members who tend to be much more moderate, Deborah Juarez and Alex Peterson.
Yeah.
But in any case, this council is really far off the mark, in my opinion, and I think that the city has suffered as a result of it. Our homelessness crisis is worse. There is this anti-business sentiment that is palpable. You look around and you just get the feeling, there's an anti-police sentiment, certainly. And so I think that
and Seattle's not alone with that. I mean, other cities have that same issue, but it seems very intense here compared to some other similar jurisdictions. But anyway, continue.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the case of Bruce Harrell, some people may say, well, we've been there, done that. What's he going to bring? He doesn't have any new ideas. I actually think if you look at his record, there are a bunch of things that he did, in fact, do as a council member. And if you're talking about wanting to not be anti-police but also demand reforms, I think that he has a good record when it comes to that. He is one of the things that we lack on the current council right now is any sort of business sense. He is a business leader. He has a business sense. He's very successful in his own right. This is a man that really doesn't need to go get a job right now.
Yeah, he's a known quantity. Much you know what you get if you vote for Bruce Harrell. I think that's really clear.
Yes. Yeah. And the only reason I wouldn't put Lance Randall first is because I looked at his campaign, where his campaign is now. We've got 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he really hasn't gotten enough traction, but I think he should have. Because I think he had some great ideas. So do you mind if I play a couple
Go
of
right, because honestly, he's not on my radar. I mean, I've been paying moderate amounts of attention in the last month or so, but he has not been on my radar.
Okay, so this is one of the things that Lance said about police relations.
Well, I will keep my commitment to the public and to our first responders that we always have to maintain a strong public safety service delivery system, and that consists of the police department, the fire department, paramedics, and human service providers. And we have to make sure that those agencies are strong, well-staffed, and well-funded. Any mayor across the country would tell you that that system is what we will have to use to keep people protected and safe, which means that I have to have a partnership with each agency and work with them to make sure they have the support they need, and also to make sure they're able to do their job to keep everyone safe and protected, which means that we have to stop the rhetoric against public safety, understand that there have to be partnerships between the community and the police officers if we're going to prevent crimes and if we're going to solve crimes. So I want to push toward comprehensive community policing where we're supporting our officers and they're doing their job to keep us protected, and we'll continue to work out the other challenges with some officers who commit atrocities. We'll deal with them, but the main thing, we have to keep our department strong and viable and supported.
And I asked him about whether he supported defunding the police.
No, I'm not in favor of that because it has not worked. We went down the steps, we went down the road, and we did reduce some funding, not only here in Seattle, but across the country. And there were still black men that looked like me being killed, which means that it's not the entire police department, it's certain officers, and that needs to be our focus, is to get them off the force. But we can reallocate resources within the department to help officers do a better job, which means that we can make available experts in mental health, drug de-escalation, and other techniques to help our officers and even accompany them on certain calls so that they can make sure that we keep everyone alive and safe and avoid fatalities.
Felix, he had great answers on business too. He talked about, because he was into economic development. He's been an economic development planner. So many of these businesses that were attracted to Seattle, he said, I'm seeing them leave because of this anti-business sentiment. He's not in favor of the head tax. So he had some fresh ideas. And I think that it would be smart if Bruce Harrell, who actually has a chance of winning and who could be someone who would be a counter to our current city council, because we're only changing 2 seats, right? That I think that it would be smart if Bruce Harrell were to bring on someone like Lance Randall and have him be part of his administration. Be someone who could help him, formulate some of these ideas. Now,
ideas are great, and being able to describe them on a radio show is one thing.
Yes.
In a phone conversation
100%.
with a very kind and generous host, right? I mean, it's like it's we all have ideas. All of us, I think, fantasize about becoming mayor of Seattle someday, right? Am I alone?
No,
I'm just kidding. But the difference between being able to talk about those ideas in a phone conversation versus the kind of the grubby, in the trenches, everyday part of politics that no one used to see, like before social media, where it's just, you're meeting with somebody who you can't stand, but you have to get along with them, or you're meeting with a donor or some powerful force in downtown business or something in a social service organization, and you have to hear their part of what they want and be able to compromise them and give them something. I do some work for the Downtown Seattle Association. I mean, full disclosure, I've moderated some panels and stuff for them. So the last couple of years, I've been talking to like all the former mayors still alive, most of them anyway. Some I wouldn't talk to, just because of the circumstances. But there's so much about politics is like, your cabinet has to trust you. You have to connect with like the head of City Light and the head of the police department. Whether or not you can hire and fire them politically or not, there has to be a certain amount of just like keeping the trains running on time, which we have not seen really in this city, even before the pandemic. And granted, there have been extraordinary circumstances around homelessness and the drug-related, the drug problems and the mental health issues around homelessness and the violence. That's unprecedented levels, but it's always been here. But we need someone who, whether it's Bruce Harrell or what's the name of the guy you first from blanking on his name?
Lance Randall.
Lance Randall. Someone like that who has to be able to articulate what Lance Randall is saying and bring us all along, because we're on the cusp of a new future that no one knows what it's going to be like a year from now, 5 years from now.
So you are someone who will be voting on it as well. Do you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite yet. I got to really think about it. I mean, Bruce Harrell, I've talked to him before. I've had the same frustration with the city council that you've articulated, that it's just like, what are we doing? Where's the grown-ups? Who's in charge?
Exactly.
Because
and it's
Seattle's
not
a very liberal
that
city.
much.
I love that Seattle's a very liberal city. I'm a very liberal guy. I'm sort of like FDR. Like, I love infrastructure. I love big government, right?
I think you're more liberal than probably I am.
Yeah. I don't mind paying taxes. I feel like I get a lot for the taxes I pay. even stuff I don't even use. I know it's helping society, and that's fine with me. I love that. I mean, Dory and I agree on that, of course. No, just kidding. But I think the mayor has to be able to articulate for people like me, for people like you, for people who are in other parts of the political spectrum, that we're all in this together. We got to be able to communicate with our federal partners because the next couple of years, it's all about the federal dollars. There's so much money now in the wake of the pandemic and we've been good about this. I think locally, King County and the city of Seattle has been good about getting federal money to buy things like motels to put homeless people in, completely reimagining the solutions we've been trying that have been failing for the last 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm very picky. I want someone who's super articulate, who can bring me along. I want a good speech. I want someone who's up there and makes me feel like, it's tough, but we're better equipped and better positioned than any city in the country to tackle these problems.
Okay, but again, who is that person for you?
It's me, Ursula. It's me. No, it's kidding. I don't know. I honestly don't know. The current field, nobody pops up in the current field as being all those things that I want. So I got to figure out who comes closest.
And just to be really clear, this is not just a Seattle problem. How we vote this particular race is going to impact this entire region.
Absolutely. Yeah, this
plain and
course.
simple.
Yeah.
So I don't want to come. That's where I say whether it's Lance Randall or Art Langley, who was also on our show.
Art's a friend of mine. Yeah.
And again, I feel like he had great ideas, and he has great ideas to bring to the table. The unfortunate reality is their campaigns, whether it's a later start, not the name recognition, and a very crowded field, my fear is that they're going to take away from someone sensible to me, like a Bruce Harrell, and then we end up with some of these other candidates who, quite frankly, I think it's going to be more of the same.
See, I hadn't thought about this. So you think that the primary will be the front runner in the primary, the person who will be likely to do the best job in terms of like meeting all the criteria that we're talking about, their support base is being robbed by these other credible candidates who have like 1%, 2%, 3% of the vote. But
exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's tough. Okay, so all those people should pull out of the race then right away, right?
No, but no, absolutely not. And I think people who want to vote for them should be able to vote for them. I'm just explaining why I'm going to vote for them, even though, like I said, I think I was most impressed by Lance Randall, and I think that he is someone who we should be seeing certainly in the future, and I hope that whoever wins would be smart enough to bring on someone like that who can help shape the future of the city so that we aren't doing the same, and have the same, feeling of it needs to be a counter to our current city council, which is not going to change that much.
Yeah, and it has to be someone who can on every platform you can think of, whether it's social media or traditional radio or TV or their own city hall based information machine, just constantly get the message out about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how each one of us is part of the solution. And nobody's tried that in Seattle for years. See, do you remember Charles Royer? He was my favorite mayor. He was 3 terms back in the 70s and 80s. Different times, obviously different times.
Before I was even
very,
here.
very lefty guy, but in Seattle was always kind of lefty but moderate. But he did what needed to be done. I think Norm Rice was the same way.
Norm Rice.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites.
Good sort of
a moderate.
Left-leaning, centrist, moderate types who know they got to work with big business, they got to work with labor, they got to work with social service agencies, and they can't be hiding away. Like the fact Lorena Gonzales doesn't want to be on the show, that's a big red flag. I mean, and Durkin's never come on the show?
No, and that has been one of
ridiculous.
Her biggest issues.
Yeah,
Mayor Durkin, she's not a good communicator.
Yeah,
and
that's a shame.
She only picks and chooses, and I think that's really been one of her biggest downfalls.
Number 2.